So we're obviously going to dive in to a bunch of basketball stuff coming up, right? Michigan State, Michigan basketball, Breslin Center, going to be crazy. Both are having very interesting seasons so far. Been interesting, I think one of the more interesting seasons of recent memory that I can remember. But first, I actually wanted to discuss something that's been sort of on everyone's mind lately, right? We talked about this earlier in the podcast, but Jim Harbaugh has sort of been having an affair, if you will, with some of the NFL teams, and I just kind of wanted to get like your thoughts on it, and if you think sort of these like credible rumors, where they stick.
First of all, so I am wearing the Big Dickinson Energy shirt. So I was wondering, I'm going to flip it back to you before I answer the question, which is, who is more hated by the Spartan fan base? And is it Jim Harbaugh or Hunter Dickinson?
Depends on the season.
Oh, my God. That's hard. I think I got to say that it's Dickinson because, I mean, Dickinson's so easy to hate.
Yeah. He does. Dickinson does. I mean, Dickinson loves it. But Harbaugh is like, I feel like nobody wants Harbaugh to fail more than Michigan State fans.
I mean,
sure,
that's a given.
I think I get what you're saying because I often find myself, and I try to be like a very realistic person. Like I think of myself as, and everyone does. Everyone's gonna say that, I think, right? But like I think of myself as very level-headed, right? And so I always said that I never believed in Jim Harbaugh because, I mean, my whole thing with him was that he was brought to Michigan to do a few things, right? Like, he was brought to win against OSU. He was brought to win the Big Ten title. Just, yes, Michigan's now winning 10 games a year. That in itself is impressive.
Well,
so I don't think that a coach like Harbaugh could fail at Michigan because he's so good, right? Like he's such a good coach. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think like there are a lot of Spartans out there that hate Jim Harbaugh so much because, well, there are a couple things. Like he was like lauded as the savior before he even like stepped foot on campus, right? So like he started off with so I think like they hated him right away. Then of course D'Antonio beats him multiple times, and you could say owned him. I don't know. I don't think so. But then also Harbaugh kind of like drove D'Antonio out at the same time. I don't know. It was a good back and forth. But I think that it took a lot longer than it should have. But ultimately now, like you said, Jim Harbaugh is doing what he was hired to do. I will say, if I had it my way, like, let's be honest, Michigan, if you're going by the paper, they like under Jim Harbaugh should be like 7-0 or 8-0 versus MSU, right? Like they're favored in probably every game, So.
Well, especially because of the later D'Antonio years, like Michigan State was not competing, right? Like you had, I mean, the 2015 loss was definitely warranted because Michigan State had a great team that year, and it was Harbaugh's first season. What are you going to do? But at the same time, like 2017, that was a loss, right? Or they had one in there, something like that. But then you add in 2020, 2021, like those are just losses that don't look great on the resume.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And that was, I guess, before Michigan did beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten title, like that was my thing with Jim Harbaugh. My criticism was like, I will actually give you losing to Ohio State because they're an absolute juggernaut, like that program is unbelievable. But I thought there was some very unacceptable losses to Michigan State, and that was ultimately like until they beat Ohio State and won the Big Ten title, like that was going to be Jim Harbaugh's demise, in my opinion. But they go out and they win. Obviously, last year's loss was tough, that's for sure, to MSU. But like now you go out and it feels like Michigan's. I would say it's fair to say Michigan's trajectory is like on the up and up, and Michigan State's is maybe questionable right now. But I will say, to go back to answer your original question, is that like Jim Harbaugh flirting with the NFL is just blowing the momentum, right, that Michigan has. Like, and the same thing happened last year. And so it really, like, from a Michigan fan's perspective, it is frustrating when it's like, holy smokes, you have one of the best years of Michigan football in recent history, and then immediately you get kicked in the nuts, and it's like, oh, our coach might leave, you know? And so it definitely, like, he has all the right to go do it, but it stinks that, like, you don't even get to, like, for 24 hours enjoy the great season that you had, and you're immediately like, oh my God, is our entire program derailed now?
Well, and that is sort of the problem with it. And like Harbaugh's a good coach, right? Like I heard a couple Michigan callers, on the radio that were saying like, oh, like Harbaugh's, a joke, like whatever. And like, yeah, if you would have said that 3 years ago, you'd be correct, like right. you would have some argument to make. But the dude just won the big title twice in a row. The dude just went to the CFP twice in a row. Like you can't make that up. There are, that is essentially what, winning the national title, sure, that is definitely something that Harbaugh has yet to check off, but that is still a very, 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 like, big thing to do. And, like, Clemson doesn't win it every year. Alabama doesn't win it every year. Like, these are, again, they're just there. It's getting there and then anything can happen at that point. It's getting there and then doing your job, essentially. So, I don't know. I think that this is, like you said, it's just it sucks, right? Like, you just had a great season. You go to the CFP. I mean, sure, disappointing finish against TCU, but, like, at least you have a QB who can grow, and your QB doesn't, he still has a long way to go, but like he's got that potential he's got the best QB potential of any Michigan QB since, I don't know, Chad Henne.
Yeah, probably. No, I think, you look at it and let's like hypothetically say Harbaugh does come back, and I need him to announce that sooner than later. Honestly, whether he's going or staying, he needs to announce it like right now for my own mental health, I think, actually. But for the sake of the program too. But I think, he comes back and Michigan's probably the favorite to win the Big Ten again. Right? Like they have a lot of guys coming back on offense. There's a chance that Blake Corum comes back too. But when you have J.J. McCarthy out there and you have a lot of these guys on defense coming back, I do think that like this program for Michigan football is in a really, really good spot right now with Jim Harbaugh, potentially coming back. I have a question for you guys though. Is Tuck still coming?
Sure.
Yes.
I mean, I think that I don't know what Sydney would say, but I think that like it's a tough question to ask. I think that it's early, right? Like, I mean, Michigan State had a incredible, insurmountable season because of one player. Like, I think that without K9, I think that Michigan State is a 7-5 team, maybe best. You know what I mean? Like, that offensive line was not great. That they had 70+% of K9's yards came after contact. Like, that's just not, that is not a recipe for success.
I'll say this, and I hope that your Spartan listeners like this. K9 should have not only been invited to the Heisman, but probably should have won it.
Probably, because I think, and this is and someone thought I was crazy for this, but I think that Bryce Young and sure, like I think that Heisman in a way, I think that there were better Heisman candidates. Like, I think that Caleb Williams should have won the Heisman in 2022, right? Like, I think that I have that opinion, but I also think that Bryce Young's season was better this year than it was in 2021. And so I just don't think that he was as incredible as people made him out to be. So I would have put him as a runner-up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just think that because of I mean, sure, Kenneth Walker was a running back. I think that even puts it into a bigger, I can't find the right words to say it, but it just shows how big that season was. Yeah. Because if you are not a quarterback and you're dictating the trajectory of a season, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah,
Nobody does that in the NFL or in college
exactly.
football.
And I think too, like what the Heisman has become is like you have to not only have a great season, but your team also like has to be undefeated and in the college football playoff, which is like that's not what the trophy used to represent. It used to represent who was the best player in college football, and that doesn't always mean that your team is the best team in college football. And like that's where to me I'm like K9 he was really really good sometimes despite his team last
Right,
year.
I know, exactly. And I mean, it's a shame that like Ohio State's just a team that, I don't think that, there's injury issues obviously that, come with that. But even against Penn State in the last game, like that was, he still was out there competing and, scoring he scored a TD in that last game. So I don't know. I just,
Yeah. I also think
I'm still taken aback by that season.
And also going back to talk is like the 11-2 season almost set everybody's standards way too high, way too early. Because like let's think about it. If they have the 2020 season, which we pretty much throw it away, right? Like it was a really weird season, so we could throw that away. You guys get the win. I'll give you the win. But other than that, like, we can throw the season away. But like, let's say Michigan State goes 6-6 or 7-5 in that 2021 season. Then like this 2022 season isn't as big of a setback. It's still like, all right, we're building. But instead, you go 11-2 and then 5-7, and it's like a huge step back. So it was just like it almost set itself up too high, too early. Whereas like otherwise, you would give him 3-4 years to figure this thing out.
And I think that any coach. No, go on, Sydney. Go on.
Okay. I think that's why I still kind of feel like I haven't given up on him yet, because we kind of saw something amazing and then it was like, okay, I guess it is still a rebuild, like back to reality. I feel like I haven't lost hope yet, and I'm not giving up on him because I think I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I think you're right, though. That like disparity between the two seasons makes it easy for people to pick on him a little bit and pick on us because,
in the contract too, right? Like,
right, of course.
The contract makes it worse, yeah. I will say that I personally don't care what any person's making. I think that here's where I stand on contracts. I think that anybody is worth what anybody's willing to pay them, right? So so I mean, sure, right? So like if I think that it's definitely more black and white than people make it out to be, right? Like I don't know, take Miguel Cabrera. On the Tigers. I'm just going to switch sports for a second. I don't care if he's making $2 a year. I don't think that he was worth being on the team for the last 2 seasons. Sorry for, all the Tigers fans I'm about to piss off, but whatever. But the same thing about Mel Tucker, right? I don't care if he's making $10 a year, right? I think that once this program's in a more stable position, I think that that's when sort of the judgment can set in, because I think in 2021 you had a dude who overperformed, and then this year you have a team who underperformed. So you have that sort of a contrast, right? Like I think that again, like I said, Michigan State was a 7-win team at best if they were without Kenneth Walker. And then, if you have this year where they could have won a couple more games, right? Like Indiana, that was definitely a game they should have won. They blew the lead. And, there were maybe a couple in there too as well. I mean, Illinois was a surprise win, but still at the same, there were just a couple games in there that they definitely could have won and not lost. And so it just kind of goes back to that sort of, overperforming, underperforming sort of deal.
I would agree with you on the contract situation too, because everyone before 2021, everyone harped on Jim Harbaugh's contract the whole time. It was like you're getting paid $7 million a year to not win the Big Ten, all those things, and it's like he got paid $7 million a year because of what he's done in the past, which is get to a Super Bowl and go 12-0 with Stanford and like all these things. It was. Obviously he needed to do what he did in 2021 and 2022, but he earned the right to make $7 million a year because he was one of the most successful coaches of all time. at both college level and at the NFL level. And now, like, he's, we're to the point where he really has solidified himself as probably one of the best one of the best football coaches in general, ever, because he's won at every level. So we're there. I'm just sad. I mean, here's the thing. The reality is, like, Michigan should be playing for a national title next week. Like, that's
absolutely. I would 100% agree with you. I am pissed. So I think that Michigan should have won that game. I wish Michigan would have won that game because I wanted the ratings. Listen, now this is selfish. But listen, because I had a great idea for a segment, and I was going to do if Michigan State won a title, what would that mean for MSU? Go on, make that, sorry for the clickbait, but here I am. And now I can't. I also don't get to see Ohio State and Michigan in the title game. And that would have been one of the greatest college football games in history, hands down.
I agree. It also, like, I don't know if I would have made it through that game, let alone that week. My heart would have stopped at some point. Like, that would have been way too much stress. I will say, from a Michigan State fan's perspective, from like just a college football fan's perspective, that would have been an awesome game. From an MSU fan's perspective, though, would you want to see, like, your two biggest rivals going up against each other in the national title game, or would that hurt?
I'm a hater all the time, so I feel like it would have hurt. But it would have looked good for the Big Ten. That's my rational side, saying it would have looked good for the Big Ten, but my Michigan State side is like, no. I would have hated it.
Would definitely be pulling for Ohio State. I hate Ohio State a lot too. Like, genuinely, like, I think that and Michigan State fans hate me for this, genuinely. But my opinion is that I actually hate Ohio State more than I hate Michigan.
Wow.
Genuinely.
That might be the first time I've ever
She's
heard
shaking
that
her head.
That's wild.
Yeah.
I have so many Michigan State friends that they don't speak to me come, like, the week of the Michigan
Hate week, yeah. Well, I had so when we were a fan site, when our team was a fan site at SB Nation and we were doing stuff for the Only Colors, I remember I got a comment on one of my articles, and because I was doing a cool article, right? Like I mean, every outlet does this, like Free Press, Detroit News, like whatever. They're doing these articles where it's like, oh, these are the best moments from the MSU Michigan rivalry, like, yada yada yada. And I broke those down, and I felt it was fair to include both, like, winning moments from both teams. Like, I just think that that's a fair thing to do, right? And I did that, and someone's like, oh, yeah, hate week should be one-sided, And I was like, yeah, but, like,
Isn't that what keeps it good? I mean, that's why it's the way that it is. And I think, like, I love to hate Michigan. But that's because, like, they love to hate us. So it's, like, fun. I don't know. It's part of it, and that's how it should be.
And this is a whole different discussion. I think that it's like, some of that stuff got out of hand. With the the tunnel incident, stuff like that. Like,
that's obviously not what I meant.
Breaking point. I feel like it's at least.
Did you hear her say that? She said she loved the tunnel incident.
No.
Okay. Oh, okay.
No, I said that's obviously not what I meant. I don't ever want anyone to get hit with a helmet. That's not what I'm saying.
You don't want to use. Yeah, I'm gonna buy a Michigan State helmet and use it as a weapon on my Michigan friends.
Yeah.
Someone's gonna cut that out, and it's gonna be posted on the internet.
and they're gonna use it as a meme.
That
will be the day.